Video 6, Focus Group. In this video, we'll move on to importing our focus group data. Here, I'll show you what the focus group file looks like. It's a Word document, and in this case, it represents a multi-person transcript. This could just as easily be an interview or any other conversation-based data. Notice how the transcript is organized. Each paragraph begins with the speaker's name or role, such as moderator or the participant's name. This structure is important because when we import the document, NVivo uses these markers to recognize who's speaking. I'll close this file for now, and we'll follow the same steps we used with the survey data. Under the data heading in the navigation pane on the left, hover over the file's subheading and right-click on it. From the menu that appears, select New Folder. In the window that opens, enter the folder name Focus Group and click OK. You'll now see the new focus group folder appear under the file's subheading. Right-click on this folder and choose Import Files. From the File Explorer window that appears, navigate to the focus group transcript Word document, select it, and then click Open. When the second Import Files window appears, confirm the file and click Import. The document is now successfully imported and a Document Properties window appears. Here you can rename the file or add a description if you like. For this example, we'll leave everything as is and click OK. Make sure the new folder focus group is selected in the navigation pane so it appears in the main NVivo workspace. Inside the main workspace, you'll see one document in this folder. Double-click it to open the file in a split view. Because this is a Word document, you can click the Edit checkbox above the document content to make any changes or additions, just like in Word. The first task is to assign each speaker's contributions to their respective case. For example, Quinn's comments appear in one section, Mohammed's in another, and so on. We'll take these chunks of text and assign them to the correct suitcase for each person. You can view these suitcases by clicking on the Cases subheading in the navigation pane. Now that we've also imported the survey data, we can see that some participants have information from multiple sources. For instance, Quinn, Mohammed, Olivia, Sam, and Shahira have data from both the Google review and the survey. Now we're going to perform a process that will take the chunks of text from the document and assign them to the correct suitcases for each person. In our document, we can see Quinn, Mohammed, Olivia, Sam, Shahira, and a moderator. Everyone except the moderator already has a case set up. So what do we do next? We'll use a feature called Autocode by Speaker Name. This allows NVivo to search the document for each speaker's name and automatically assign their text to the corresponding case. That's why it's important that each speaker's name appears at the beginning of their section. Here's how to do it. First, make sure the document is open. In the ribbon at the top of the screen, below the top-level tabs, click the Autocode button. A window will appear asking what you want to autocode for. You'll notice options for themes and sentiment, but for now, select Speaker Name. NVivo will then take the text associated with each speaker and assign it to the appropriate case. Once ready, click Next in the bottom right corner of the window to continue. In Step 2 of the Autocode wizard, you'll need to enter the names of all the speakers. You can either have a list of names handy or simply reference the document itself, which appears in the bottom half of the window and can be scrolled through. We'll begin by coding the moderator first. Type moderator in the field labeled Enter All Speakers. The entry is not case sensitive, but spelling must be exact. If it's misspelled, NVivo won't recognize the name. Since the moderator is the first speaker, all text from the first instance of moderator is initially highlighted and assigned to that case. As you add additional speakers, the Autocode wizard will correctly divide the text and assign the appropriate portions to each speaker. Next, move on to Quinn. Type Quinn under the Enter All Speakers field. NVivo will highlight all the text attributed to Quinn up to the next speaker or the moderator. Then, for Mohammed, type Mohammed under the same Enter All Speakers field. NVivo will now highlight all text attributed to Mohammed up until the next speaker appears. Next, type Olivia under Enter All Speakers. Her text will be highlighted automatically up until the next speaker. Finally, type Sam and Shahira, one at a time under Enter All Speakers, and NVivo will highlight their respective sections of text. That completes all the speakers in this document. We can now click Next in the bottom right corner of the window. NVivo will ask whether to create a new classification or add to an existing one. Since all of our people already exist as cases, except the moderator, choose Add to Existing Classification. Confirm the storage location for your cases. The default is Cases, and then click the Finish button in the bottom right corner of the window. With the Cases folder still selected in the navigation pane, you can now see in the main workspace that some people have 3 files assigned to them while others only have 1. This indicates that Kim, Carol, Owen, and Robert do not appear in the focus group. The moderator is unique to this transcript. All right, the focus group autocoding is now complete. We can also manually code the transcript if we like, following the same process as before. To keep things organized, I'll create a new draft folder specifically for focus group codes. In the navigation pane, right-click on the codes heading, select New Folder, and name it Focus Group. Any coding we do for this transcript will appear in this draft folder, which is now showing up in the main workspace. For example, one of the questions asked how often participants shop at the grocery store and what they buy most often. Quinn responds, "Stuff I buy most in the store is usually for quick meals. I am a college student trying to minimize time in the kitchen. I have to study a lot. So, it's quick stuff for meals, ground beef, throw something together, etc." We'll move quickly through the responses to keep the video series flowing. Since our research question focuses on how to improve the store, I'll code this response with that lens. For Quinn, I'll highlight the text and drag it into the blank space within the codes pane. I'll call this code Quick Meals for Students. Then click OK at the bottom right corner of the window. This can inform display or sales strategies targeting students. For Mohammed, I'll highlight his response, that he tends to buy whatever is on sale and drag it into a blank space in the code section. I'll title this code Sale Items Important. Then click OK in the bottom right corner of the window. Olivia has 4 children in a 6-person household. She shops about 4 times a week, buying milk, bread, and other basics. I'll highlight her text and drag it into the blank spot in the codes pane, then enter the title Essentials and click OK in the bottom right corner of the window. Sam lives near the grocery store and focuses on essentials like fruits and vegetables. I'll highlight his text and drag it into Essentials. Shahira mentions needing quick, convenient items for her household. I'll highlight the relevant text, drag it into a blank spot in the codes pane, title the code Quick Meals for Families, then click OK in the bottom right corner of the window. The moderator is included for context. We can just go ahead and ignore the moderator's text. For other qualitative observations, such as mentions of well-lit areas or organizational displays, I'll create codes like good lighting or appealing organization. Look at the responses. Mohammed mentions that good customer service is important. I'll highlight his text, drag it into a blank spot in the codes pane, and create a code titled Customer Service Important. Then click OK in the bottom right corner of the window. Olivia comments on lighting, noting that some lighting makes food look unappealing. I'll highlight her text, drag it into a blank spot in the codes pane, and create a code called Looks for Good Lighting to Make Food Appealing. Then click OK in the bottom right corner of the window. Remember, sometimes codes are shorter and sometimes you need to include more detail to capture the meaning accurately. Sam observes how the food is stored and the general organization and decoration of the store. I'll highlight the full response from Sam, drag it into the blank spot in the codes pane, and create a code called Appealing Organization. Then click OK in the bottom right corner of the window. For the last question in the Word document, some responses prompted by the moderator, like references to shopping for boxed or dried goods, don't add any meaningful insight for our research question. As the researcher, I can choose not to code these. Next, to organize these codes, I'll create a parent code called What People Look For. This is slightly different from how we organized codes previously. I'll click the Codes heading in the navigation pane. Then, in the main workspace, I'll right-click on a blank area of the Codes pane and choose New Code from the menu. In the dialog that appears, I'll enter What People Look For in all caps as the name, and then click OK in the bottom right corner of the window. Once the parent code is created, I'll return to the focus group folder in the navigation pane. I'll click the first code in our list, hold Shift, and click the last code to select all codes. Then I'll right-click and select Copy. Next, I'll navigate back to the Codes folder in the navigation pane. Once this Codes pane is open within the main workspace, we'll right-click the newly created parent code, What People Look For, and select Paste. This moves the individual codes we created, Customer Service Important, Good Lighting, and Appealing Organization, under the parent code, What People Look For. Next, we'll discuss annotations. Unlike memos, which are either general notes or attached to a file, annotations are linked to selected content within a file, like sticky notes. These appear highlighted in blue, and you can view the note by clicking the text. For example, if Sam seemed reluctant to answer a question, I can highlight the relevant text, right-click, and select New Annotation. A small sticky note icon will appear next to the highlighted text, and a text box will appear at the bottom of the screen where I can type the annotation. I will enter. It appeared that Sam didn't want to answer our question, not sure why. Click outside the annotation entry field to save it. The annotation is now created, and the highlighted text appears in blue. Let's add another example with Quinn. I can annotate their first response at the top of the document by highlighting the text, right-clicking, and selecting New Annotation. In the annotation entry field at the bottom of the screen, I will type, Quinn was excited to be the first person to answer. Annotations provide a useful way to document observations or context for specific responses. Next, we'll explore queries. In a previous video, we ran simple queries like text search query for the word price with stemmed words selected. This helped identify references to prices in the Google reviews. We also ran word frequency queries to explore most used words. Now we'll move to more advanced queries. A matrix coding query helps identify patterns by creating tables where rows and columns represent project items or attributes, and the cells show intersections of coding. For example, we can examine the distribution of positive and negative feedback across files. To run a matrix coding query, click Explore on the toolbar at the top of the screen, then select Matrix Coding Query. In the main workspace, you'll see two fields, rows and columns. At the bottom left of the rows field, click the plus sign and click the option called Select Items. A new window will open where you can choose the files to include in the query. Click the plus sign icon next to Files to expand this section. Then check the boxes for Focus Group, Reviews, and Survey. Finally, click OK in the bottom right corner of the window. In the Columns field, click the plus sign and select the option called Select Items. A new window will open, allowing you to choose the codes to include in the query. From the list on the left, click on Codes to display all available codes on the right. Check the boxes next to positive feedback and negative feedback, making sure not to select any subcodes. Finally, click OK in the bottom right corner of the window. Now, click the Run Query button located above the Rows and Columns field on the right. Below the Rows and Columns fields, a simple table appears. Column 1 lists the data sources, Google Reviews, Focus Groups, and Survey, while columns 2 and 3 display the corresponding negative and positive feedback values. If a file shows no results, it may not have been coded using these categories. For example, if we click on Focus Group in the navigation pane, we can see the list of codes used, none of which included negative feedback or positive feedback, since we didn't code the focus group that way. To remove a file from the query, such as the focus group, scroll to the relevant file in the Rows field, click on it once, and then click the minus sign at the bottom left corner of the field. With the file removed, click the Run Query button again. The table now displays more relevant data, and you can use the Color panel in the toolbar at the top of the screen to visualize responses better. Darker colors indicate a higher number of references. Another type of query is the cross-tabulation query, which lets us examine patterns between codes and case classifications, such as gender. To run this query, click Explore and then choose Crosstab from the Queries menu. In the main workspace, you'll see a codes field. Click the plus sign at the bottom left of this field to add codes. In the window that opens, check the boxes for negative feedback and positive feedback, making sure not to include any subcodes by expanding each option and leaving the subcategories unchecked. Click OK in the bottom right corner to confirm. To the right of the codes field, leave classification set to person and attribute 1 set to gender. Then click the Run Query button. The table that appears shows how feedback differs by gender, helping to highlight trends in responses. We can use the color coding button in the toolbar to make the results easier to interpret. In this example, we can see that a higher number of males gave negative feedback. If needed, we can also add a second attribute by using the drop-down menu next to Attribute 2. Let's click on this Attribute 2 drop-down and select the question that begins with "based on our recent visit." Then click the Run Queries button again. This produces a table where columns 1 through 3 represent female respondents, with the columns sorted into undecided, yes, and no. We can also change the order of the table by clicking the button with the 2 arrows, located to the right of the Attribute drop-down menu, and then run the query again. With this change, the table now lists the question first. Columns 1 through 3 are a mix of genders, but all represent respondents who answered undecided to the question. By using these functions, we can start to explore our data in more depth, especially when working with case classifications. We can also create a hierarchy chart which organizes codes visually using both color and size to show the distribution of coding. To do this, click Explore at the top of the screen, then select the button titled Hierarchy Chart. From the list that appears, click on Hierarchy Charts. A new window will open called the Hierarchy Chart Wizard, which provides several settings. The first option says Amount of Coding For and is set to codes by default. We'll leave this as it is. Keep the next 2 settings unchanged, and then click the Next button at the bottom right of the window. In Step 2 of the Hierarchy Chart Wizard, we're asked to choose what we want to compare. By default, it's set to include all codes. Instead, we'll select Selected Items and then click the Select button to the right. A new window will appear where we can pick specific codes. At the top of this window, we'll check the box labeled Automatically Select Descendant Codes. And then, below, we'll check the boxes for both negative feedback and positive feedback. By enabling the Descendant Codes option, everything nested under negative and positive feedback will also be included in the chart. We will then click the OK button in the bottom right corner of the window. We'll also change the Coded To setting so that it only includes selected files. To do this, check the box next to Selected Items. In the window that opens, select the parent codes negative feedback and positive feedback, then click OK in the bottom right corner. With these settings in place, we can now click the Finish button in the Hierarchy Chart Wizard. The chart will display, and we can see the blue area representing negative feedback is larger than the orange area representing positive feedback. The relative volume of feedback in each category makes patterns like frequent mentions of high prices or knowledgeable staff and needs training easy to spot. Another way to explore your data is with a chart that breaks down a thematic code by a case attribute. For example, let's look at the gender distribution for comments coded to high prices. To do this, click on the codes in the navigation pane on the left side of the screen. Your codes will appear in the main NVivo workspace. Open the negative feedback parent folder by clicking the plus sign next to it, then right-click on the high prices code. From the menu that appears, hover over Visualize, and then select Chart Code Coding by Attribute Value. There are also many other visualization options here, which are worth exploring later. A new window titled Chart Options will appear, giving us several choices for the X and Y values. For the field labeled X-axis attribute, click the Select button. In the window that opens, expand the Person folder and choose Gender. Then click OK in the bottom right corner. Next, use the drop-down menu under X-axis attribute and change it to All Attribute Values except Unassigned and Not Applicable. For the Y-axis setting, click the drop-down menu and select Number of Coding References. As with other visualizations, there are many options available that will produce different results, so I encourage you to explore these on your own later. Click OK in the bottom right corner of the Chart Options window to generate the chart. A simple bar chart appears showing how many males, females, or non-binary participants mentioned high prices. From the chart, we can see that males referenced high prices more frequently than any other group. The next visualization we'll look at is a comparison diagram, which allows you to compare codes, files, or cases. For example, to compare high prices and expired food across participants, click Explore in the ribbon menu at the top of the screen. Then click the Diagrams button and select Compare Codes from the list of options. Choose Compare Codes to see what participants mentioned each code. In the window that appears, check the boxes next to high prices and expired food, then click OK in the bottom right corner. A diagram is generated showing which participants mentioned each code. To simplify the view and focus only on cases, uncheck the box next to Files Coded. In this view, we can see that Olivia, Mohammed, Sam, and Owen all spoke about high prices, while Quinn mentioned both high prices and expired food. Shahira and Carol only spoke about expired food. This visualization highlights commonalities across cases and makes it easier to spot overlaps in responses. The next visualization is called an Explore diagram, which focuses on a single code or case and shows all its connections. For example, in the Codes pane of the main NVivo workspace, right-click on High Prices, hover over Visualize, and select Explore Diagram from the submenu. A diagram appears with high prices at the center and its connections radiating outward. We can also focus on a specific participant, such as Owen, to see all coding and connections related to that participant. To do this, right-click on Owen's node and select Change Focus. The diagram updates, placing Owen at the center instead of high prices, allowing us to explore all connections tied to that participant. Finally, a word cloud provides a visual summary of the most frequently coded words. To create one for high prices, right-click the code in the Codes pane of the main NVivo workspace, hover over Visualize, and select Word Cloud from the submenu. The resulting visualization highlights the words that appear most often across all documents coded to that category. So in this session, we imported additional documents into the project, including focus group data and survey responses. We assigned all text to cases and created and organized codes, including a new parent code called What People Look For. We added annotations to capture qualitative observations and ran both basic and advanced queries to explore the data. We also explored multiple types of visualizations, including hierarchy charts, coding by attribute, comparison diagrams, explore diagrams, and word clouds. This completes the NVivo video series, expanding on our initial project setup and setting us up for deeper qualitative analysis.